The galaxy knew her name like a curse. The alien pirate was feared across every system. Mothers warned their children that if they misbehaved, she would come with her fleet. Soldiers whispered her name when they prayed before battle. She had burned colonies, destroyed fleets, and left nothing but ashes behind her. Her ship was a monster of metal, black like the night sky. Covered in scars of war, her crew obeyed without question, for they knew the price of disobedience. She ruled with iron command, never showing weakness, never sparing lives. One evening, while stars shone cold above, her scouts found a small human cargo ship drifting near the edge of a forgotten system. It was not a battleship, not a colony vessel, just a slow, fragile ship carrying food and supplies. Easy prey. Crush it, she ordered with her voice sharp like a blade. Her fleet moved fast, weapons glowing. The humans tried to run, but they were too slow. The pirate ship caught them, disabled their engines, and pulled them in with tractor beams. The human crew trembled as they were dragged into the docking bay. Some begged, some cried, others tried to hide. The alien pirate watched them with cold eyes. She had seen this 100 times before, and she felt nothing. But then her eyes stopped on one man. He stood in the middle of the captured crew, calm, not shaking, not begging, his eyes locked on hers as if he was not afraid. That was unusual. Humans usually begged or cursed, but this one, he was silent, steady. She stepped closer. Her shadow fell over him. The crew behind him gasped, for they knew what happened when the pirate showed interest. "You are not afraid," she said, her voice low, almost curious. The man replied, "Fear changes nothing." His voice was steady, not broken. "If you're going to kill me, then kill me, but I will not beg." Her crew laughed, sharp, cruel laughter. They expected her to strike him down for his bold words, but she did not. Something in his calm face made her pause. Her hand stayed at her side, her blade still in its sheath. "Take him," she ordered, "but keep him alive." The crew looked at each other, surprised. No prisoner ever lasted long on her ship. Hours later, she sat alone in her quarters, staring at the stars outside. The human's words repeated in her mind. Fear changes nothing. She had heard many things from dying lips, but never that. Why did it stay in her thoughts? The next day, she walked to the prison deck. The human sat inside a force field cell, his posture still calm, his eyes still steady. He did not bow when she entered, did not look away. "You should be afraid," she told him. Her voice echoed against the walls. "You know who I am?" "I know," he answered. "You are the pirate who burns worlds, the terror of the stars." His tone was not mocking, only calm. "But still, fear will not help me." Her hand twitched near her weapon again. Her pride demanded she punish him for such boldness. Yet she only asked, "What is your name?" "Human." He answered, "My name is Daniel." Daniel, the name sounded strange in her mouth. Her crew's names were hard, sharp, but his was simple, short, soft. She left without saying more, but his eyes followed her, calm and unbroken. That night, when she closed her eyes, she saw not fire, not screaming victims, not the cold glory of battle. She saw his calm face, his words like a whisper in the silence of space. For the first time in many years, the ruthless alien pirate did not sleep easily. Something inside her had shifted, something she did not understand. She was a terror, a queen of pirates. She had destroyed without guilt, killed without thought. But one human prisoner had spoken without fear, and it shook her heart more than any fleet of warships ever had. And in the cold silence of the stars, she wondered if this human might be more dangerous to her than any enemy she had ever faced. The alien pirate did not often visit her prisoners. Usually she ordered them thrown into cells, then forgotten until execution or ransom. But this human, Daniel, was different. His calm eyes and steady words lingered in her thoughts like a ghost she could not banish. She walked into the prison deck again. Her boots echoed on the cold metal floor. The other prisoners huddled in fear, whispering when they saw her shadow. But Daniel did not move. He sat on the floor of his cell with his back against the wall, eyes steady, hands resting on his knees. He looked more like a man waiting for the sunrise than a man awaiting death. "You still do not fear me," she said, standing before the glowing force field. Daniel lifted his head. "Fear is easy," he answered, "but easy things are worthless." Her jaw tightened. She had broken soldiers, commanders, even kings. None had spoken to her like this. She leaned closer, her voice low. "You speak like a fool. Human, do you know what I have done? The worlds I have burned." Daniel's gaze did not shift. "Yes, I know," he said, "but you're still flesh and blood. Like me, you bleed, you hunger, you breathe. You are not the void itself. You are a person who made choices." Her crew laughed when they heard. They stood behind her, watching with cruel smiles. "Shall we silence him, Captain?" one asked, eager for violence. She raised a hand, silencing them. Her eyes stayed locked on Daniel. "Why do you talk to me as if I am human?" she asked, almost spitting the word. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Because cruelty does not erase humanity." The pirate's chest tightened at his words. She hated that they sounded heavier than any blade. She turned sharply and left, but her steps were slower than before. Her crew muttered among themselves, confused why their ruthless captain spared such a man. That night, as the ship drifted through the cold black, she found herself returning to the prison deck, this time without an audience. Only silence and the hum of engines filled the air. Daniel was awake, his eyes opening as she approached. "You came back," he said simply. "Do not mistake my curiosity for weakness," she snapped. "I could end your life with one command." "Then why have you not?" Daniel asked quietly. His tone was not mocking, not daring, only questioning. Why does the terror of the stars still speak to one human prisoner? Her breath caught. For once, she had no answer. She gripped the hilt of her weapon, but did not draw it. Instead, she said, "Perhaps I wish to understand why you do not break." Daniel's reply was calm. "Because breaking does not help me survive." He leaned forward slightly. "And maybe because I want you to see something you have forgotten." Her eyes narrowed. "And what would that be?" "That even in darkness, there is choice," Daniel whispered. "You were not born with fire in your hands. You chose fire. You could choose something else." The words struck her harder than any weapon. She turned and left without another word, but her thoughts burned. The following day, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared as enemy ships appeared on the radar. It was a rival pirate fleet, one that had hunted her for months. They attacked fast, lasers cutting across the black void. Her crew scrambled, shouting orders, returning fire. Explosions rocked the ship. The alien pirate stood tall at the command deck, her voice steady, giving orders that cut through chaos. Yet for the first time, she thought of Daniel, the strange human locked in a cell below. When enemy soldiers boarded, battle filled the halls. Her warriors clashed in fire and steel, and blood painted the walls. In the confusion, a blast tore through the prison deck. The force fields failed, cells burst open, prisoners screamed and fled. Daniel could have run. He could have disappeared in the madness. But when he saw enemy soldiers charging toward the command deck, he grabbed a fallen weapon and fought. He was no trained soldier, yet he fought with desperate strength. When the alien pirate turned in the middle of the battle, she saw him standing there, weapon in hand, defending her flank. For a moment, time froze. She saw the human who should have fled, standing beside her instead. Her blade struck down enemies. His stolen weapon fired. They fought back to back as the rival fleet pressed harder. At last, her crew pushed the boarders out, sealing the ship once more. Breathing hard, she turned to Daniel. His face was dirty, sweat dripping, blood on his sleeve, but his eyes still steady. "You could have run," she said, almost whispering. Daniel nodded. "I could have," he said, "but I did not." Her heart thundered with a rhythm she had not felt in years. She stared at him, the man she had captured, the man she should have killed, and realized something dangerous. The ruthless alien pirate, feared by all, had begun to feel something she did not understand, something more frightening than any enemy fleet. The ship still carried the scars of battle. Metal walls were torn, smoke drifted from broken vents. The crew moved like ghosts, repairing damage, whispering about what they had seen. They whispered about the human, the man who had fought beside their captain, a prisoner who should have been weak, yet stood strong. Some said he was cursed, Others said he was brave, but all wondered why their captain had spared him once more. The alien pirate stood on the command deck, staring at the stars. Her eyes were cold, but inside her chest, a storm was rising. She could still feel the weight of Daniel fighting at her side. His calm voice, his steady presence, it unsettled her more than the enemy's cannons ever had. She had ruled with fear for years. No one had dared to question her. But now her own crew whispered in the shadows. "Why does she keep him alive?" they asked. "Why does she let him walk beside her?" At night, when silence filled the ship, she went to the prison deck again. Daniel sat on the floor of his cell, his arm wrapped with bandages from the fight, his eyes lifted when she appeared. "You fought," she said, her voice softer than before. "But you could have died." Daniel gave a small nod. "So could you," he answered. Her jaw tightened. She hated his calm tone, hated that his words struck deep. She stepped closer, her shadow falling across the bars. "Why?" she demanded. "Why risk your life for me?" Daniel leaned forward, his eyes steady. "Because even pirates need someone who believes they can be more than monsters." Her breath caught. Her chest felt heavy. For a moment, she almost drew her weapon to silence him. But she could not. His words cut through her armor like fire through paper. Unseen in the shadows, two of her lieutenants listened, their faces twisted with anger. They did not trust the human. They did not trust their captain's strange mercy. To them, she was losing her edge, and a leader who lost her edge would soon lose her throne. The next day, while repairs continued, a message arrived through the dark channels of space. A rival captain, an old enemy, offered an alliance to her crew. Not to her. The message promised wealth, safety, and freedom from the shadow of their ruthless leader. Her lieutenants listened. Their hearts burned with greed and fear. And so, betrayal took root in whispers. Daniel sensed the tension. He noticed the way crew members avoided his eyes, the way they muttered when their captain's back was turned. One evening, when she visited again, he spoke quietly. "They plot against you." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, your own," Daniel said. "Not all, but enough. I saw the way they look, the way they wait. They will strike when the moment is right." The alien pirate's hand tightened on her blade. Rage burned in her heart. But beneath it was something colder, something sharper. She had been betrayed before, but never by her own core. When the ambush came, it came like fire. The lieutenant struck while the ship drifted near an asteroid field, weapons drawn, voices shouting. The hulls of the ship became a battlefield. She fought with fury, her blade flashing, cutting through the traitors. Her voice roared commands, but the rebellion spread fast. Her enemies wanted her dead. They wanted her throne. Daniel, freed in the chaos, appeared beside her once more. He grabbed a weapon from the fallen and stood by her, fighting at her side, as if he belonged there. Her crew stared in shock. Some spat in rage. The human fights for her. They cried, "She has chosen a prisoner over us." The alien pirate's eyes burned as she cut down another traitor. Her heart thundered, not only with rage, but with something dangerous. She realized she trusted this human more than her own bloodthirsty crew. At last, the rebellion was crushed, the hulls silent except for the groans of the wounded. The pirate stood covered in blood and smoke. Daniel stood beside her, breathing hard, eyes steady. "You warned me," she said quietly. "I told you," Daniel answered, his voice calm even now. "But you did not listen soon enough." For the first time in years, the ruthless pirate felt something strange, doubt. She had always believed strength was everything. Fear was her only weapon. But now her crew had turned on her, and a single human had saved her life twice. The galaxies still feared her name, but inside her ship, her throne of power was cracking, and she knew the whispers would only grow louder. She stared at Daniel, her eyes filled with conflict. Was he her weakness, or was he the only reason she still stood? The stars outside burned cold. The silence stretched heavy. The pirate who once feared nothing now feared one thing alone, what she was beginning to feel. The ship drifted in silence after the mutiny. The smell of smoke and blood still lingered in the corridors. The bodies had been cleared, But the echoes of betrayal remained. The crew worked nervously, their eyes sharp, their whispers louder than before. They no longer looked at their captain with pure fear. They looked at her with doubt, and doubt was poison. She knew it. She had seen great rulers fall not from enemy fire, but from the slow bite of mistrust. The alien pirate stood in her quarters, staring at her reflection in the dark glass. For years, she had built her throne with terror. She had crushed anyone who defied her. But now, for the first time, she questioned herself, she questioned her path. And at the center of that storm was the human, Daniel. She found herself walking to the prison deck again. The door hissed open. The lights flickered. Daniel was waiting. As if he knew she would come, his arm was still bandaged, his face still marked with bruises. But his eyes were the same, steady calm. "You knew this would happen," she said, her voice low. "I saw it in their eyes," Daniel replied. "Men and women who fear their leader without respect always look for a chance to strike." Her hands clenched. "I have never needed respect," she growled. Fear was enough. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice calm. "But fear breaks chains. Respect builds them stronger." His words struck her like a blade. She wanted to deny them, to laugh at them. But her chest felt heavy. The truth was too close, too sharp. "Why did you save me again?" she asked suddenly, her voice breaking through the silence. "Why risk your life when you could have run?" Daniel's gaze did not waver. "Because I see more in you than you let yourself see," he said. "You were the mask of a monster. But monsters do not hesitate. Monsters do not question themselves. You are more than the terror you pretend to be." Her breath caught. Anger rose in her chest. But it was not real anger. It was fear. Fear of what his words made her feel. She stepped closer to the glowing bars, her voice sharp. "Do not speak as if you know me, human." "I do not need to know everything," Daniel said softly. "I only need to see the cracks." Her heart thundered. For the first time in years, she felt cornered, not by an army, not by weapons, but by truth. She turned sharply, her cape swirling. "Enough," she hissed, leaving before he could say more. But his words stayed with her, chains of thought, chains of the heart. They bound her in ways she had never been bound before. Days passed, but the unease did not fade. Her crew obeyed her orders, but their whispers grew. Some claimed she had gone soft. Others said the human had cursed her. The ship felt colder, darker. One evening, as she walked the halls, she overheard two crew members, their voices low but sharp. "She is not the same," one said. "The human has changed her. She will lead us to ruin." Her blade flashed. The two dropped where they stood. Silence filled the corridor. She wiped the blood from her weapon, yet the words still burned in her ears. When she returned to her quarters, Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. "Fear breaks chains. Respect builds them stronger." She hated that she remembered. She hated that the thought of him brought not anger, but something else, something dangerous. The next day, she summoned him out of the cell. The crew watched with wide eyes as their captain ordered the human brought before her. He stood tall, even without weapons. His presence unsettled them. She looked at him, her voice sharp. "You stand beside me now, but do not mistake this for mercy. You are still my prisoner." Daniel nodded calmly. "Then I will stand as a prisoner who does not bow." The crew gasped at his boldness, expecting her to strike him down, but she did not. Her hand hovered near her blade, her chest tight, yet no strike came. Instead, she turned her gaze to her crew. "This human has fought for this ship when many of you turned against me," she declared. "Do not mistake my choice. He is not your equal, but he is under my protection." Her crew muttered, fear in their eyes, confusion on their faces. None dared to challenge her. Not yet. But the seeds of unrest grew deeper. Later, alone on the command deck, she looked at Daniel once more. His calm presence made the silence heavier. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You are dangerous." Daniel met her gaze, "Not because of what I do, but because of what you feel." The words struck deeper than any blade. She turned away quickly, her heart pounding. Her mask of ruthlessness cracked, if only for a moment. The pirate queen of terror, feared across the stars, was caught in chains she could not break, not chains of iron, but chains of the heart. The ship sailed quietly through the black sea of stars, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence of a storm waiting to break. The crew obeyed their captain's orders, yet their eyes carried doubt. Their whispers spread like fire in the shadows. The alien pirate stood tall at the command deck, but inside, she felt the weight of every stare. For years, she had ruled with absolute fear. No one had dared to question her. Now, even after crushing a mutiny, she could feel the cracks. Her throne of terror was no longer unshakable. At the center of it all stood Daniel, the human who refused to bow. Some of the crew hated him. Others feared him. A few wondered if perhaps he was more than a prisoner. But to the pirate, he was something far more dangerous. He was a mirror, showing her the truth she wanted to deny. One evening, when the stars glowed, faint and distant, Daniel walked beside her on the command deck. He was no longer locked in a cell. She had released him under her watch, a decision that shocked the crew. His calm voice cut through the silence. "They will rise against you again," Daniel said. "You know it." Her eyes narrowed. "And what would you have me do?" "Choose," Daniel answered simply. "Either rule with fear until nothing is left, or stand with something stronger." His words struck deep. She hated that he made her question. She hated that his presence twisted the silence of her mind. But she could not silence him. His voice had already become a chain she carried everywhere. The betrayal came sooner than she expected. Her lieutenants struck at dawn, weapons drawn, voices raised in fury. They stormed the command deck, shouting that the captain had grown weak, that she was no longer fit to lead. The crew splintered, some loyal, most swayed by fear. The alien pirate drew her blade. Her voice roared across the ship. "You dare raise arms against me." Steel clashed, fire burned. The hulls of the ship turned into rivers of chaos. Betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Her warriors, her own blood, now fought to kill her. In the middle of the storm stood Daniel. He could have fled. He could have disappeared into the black. But instead, he fought beside her once more. His stolen weapon flashed, his voice steady, even in fire. "Hold the line," he shouted, his tone carrying strength. "Do not bow to cowards." The alien pirate's blade cut through traitors, but her eyes kept finding Daniel in the chaos. Every time he struck, every time he stood firm, she felt her heart tighten. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was her ally, her anchor in the storm. The mutiny raged for hours. The ship shook under its own fury. At last, the traitors lay defeated, their bodies broken across the decks. Blood stained the metal. Smoke curled in the air. The survivors knelt before their captain, not with loyalty, but with fear. She stood, breathing hard, her blade dripping. Her eyes moved across the silent crew, then to Daniel, who stood bruised, tired, but unbroken. "You fought for me again," she whispered. "I fight for what is right," Daniel said simply, "not for fear, not for greed." Her chest ached. His words carried more weight than the blood on her blade. She had built her empire on fire and steel, but in this one human's courage, she saw something she had never built: trust. That night, the ship drifted in silence once more. The stars stretched endless outside. She stood at the glass, Daniel beside her. Her voice was heavy. "I have always chosen fear. It made me strong. It made me untouchable." Daniel turned to her, his eyes steady. "Fear made you alone." The words pierced like an arrow. She wanted to deny them, but she could not. She remembered the faces of her crew, the whispers of betrayal, the endless blood. She remembered the loneliness of her throne. Now, for the first time, she faced a choice not with her blade, but with her heart. The galaxies still whispered her name with terror, but in this moment, she knew the truth. Her real enemy was not the fleets outside, not the traitors within. It was the void inside her. And only one human had dared to step into that void. Her hand clenched at her side. She was the ruthless pirate of the stars. Yet in this quiet, she felt something break, something change. The choice lay before her, and the galaxy would never be the same once she made it. The ship drifted across the endless dark, battered but alive. The crew moved quietly, repairing damage, yet their eyes never stopped watching. They had seen their captain bleed. They had seen her fight beside a human. For many, the fear that once chained them had turned into doubt. The alien pirate stood at the center of it all, her blade still sharp, her voice still commanding, but inside, she was no longer the same. Every step she took, every order she gave, was haunted by Daniel's words. One evening, when the stars burned red along the horizon of a dying sun, she found herself standing on the viewing deck. Daniel walked beside her. His eyes were steady, his presence calm, as always. "You look at the stars differently now," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "Do not presume to know how I look at anything." "I do not need to presume," Daniel replied softly. "I can see it. You are tired of blood." Her chest tightened. For years, blood had been her language, fire her only truth. But now, she remembered his voice during the battles, his steady defiance, his refusal to bow. He had changed her in ways she did not understand. "They will never forgive me," she said quietly. "The colonies I burned, the fleets I destroyed, my name is written in ashes across the stars." Daniel looked at her without fear. "Then write something else. Start again. Be more than the terror they whisper about." His words struck deep. They scared her more than any fleet. To start again meant to abandon everything she had built. It meant to step into the unknown. She had been ruthless for so long that she did not know what she was without it. Her crew noticed the change. Whispers grew louder. Some claimed she had gone soft. Others swore the human had poisoned her mind. They feared her less with every day, and fear had been her throne. Without it, her rule shook like glass. The rival fleets saw it too. They began to circle like predators, waiting for the moment to strike. Messages of war lit up the dark. The galaxy had sensed weakness in the Queen of Terror. One night, alarms blared. A massive enemy fleet appeared on the edge of the system, larger than any she had faced in years. Their message was simple: surrender or burn. Her crew looked to her, their eyes filled with doubt and fear. They no longer knew if she was the ruthless leader they had followed or the uncertain woman the human had awakened. On the command deck, Daniel stood beside her, his calm voice cut through the noise. "This is the moment," he said. "You can fight, as you always have, drowning everything in blood, or you can fight for something new." Her hands tightened on the controls. Her heart thundered. She had always chosen war without hesitation. But now the choice felt heavier. "If I choose wrong, we all die," she said. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady. "If you choose only war, then even if you win, you still lose because you will remain the monster you fear." The silence that followed was heavier than the sound of enemy guns. She looked at him, this human who should have been dust in her prisons, but who now stood as her anchor. The battle began. Fire lit the stars. Enemy ships swarmed like wolves. Her ship shook under the storm, yet her voice rang clear, commanding with power. For the first time, her orders were not driven by cruelty, but by determination to protect. Daniel fought beside the crew. His courage lit fires in their hearts. Slowly, they began to see not just a prisoner, but a man who believed in something greater. And in their captain, they saw something they had not seen before. Not only fear, but resolve. Still, the enemy pressed hard. The ship was burning, their defenses cracking. The galaxy seemed to close in around them. In the chaos, she found Daniel again, his voice steady even as fire raged. "You are not alone anymore," he said. The words struck like lightning. She had always been alone, always the queen of fear. Now, in the fire of battle, she felt something she had never felt: hope. The choice was no longer just hers. It belonged to both of them. Together, they would either fall or rise. As the enemy closed in, the ruthless alien pirate, who had ruled with terror for years, prepared to fight not only for survival, but for something far more dangerous. She prepared to fight for love. The battle raged across the void. The enemy fleet surrounded them. Fire streaked across the black sky. Her ship shook with every strike. Alarms screamed. Crew shouted, yet the alien pirate stood at the center, her blade at her side, her voice strong. For years she had been the terror of the stars. For years she had been nothing but fire and blood. But tonight, she was something else. Tonight, she was more. Hold the line, she roared, her voice cutting through the chaos. Do not give them our ship. Do not give them our lives. The crew looked at her, and for the first time in their lives, they did not only see fear, they saw strength mixed with resolve. They saw a leader who stood not above them. But with them, Daniel's words had begun to shape her, and though her crew did not understand it, they followed. Daniel fought in the halls, weapon in hand. His courage spread like fire. Soldiers who once doubted now fought harder beside him. For every blow that landed on their ship, their resolve grew sharper. The enemy pressed harder, their numbers were greater, their weapons stronger. It seemed hopeless. Yet inside that hopelessness, the alien pirate found clarity. She no longer fought for conquest. She no longer fought for fear. She fought to protect. She fought to save. Her eyes found Daniel across the deck, his face lit by fire, his stance unbroken, his voice steady. And in that moment, she understood. The galaxy had always whispered her name in fear. But now, in the middle of the storm, she realized the galaxy could whisper her name in another way. Not as the destroyer, but as the one who chose differently. The enemy commander hailed her, his voice sharp and mocking. Surrender, pirate! Your ship is dying. Your throne is broken. You cannot win. Her jaw tightened. Her voice thundered in reply. I am not surrendering. Not today, not ever. She cut the signal and gave the order to charge. Her ship dove through the enemy formation like a blade through silk. Guns fired. Cannons roared. Explosions painted the dark sky. The crew screamed battle cries. Daniel stood at her side, steady, unshaken. Together, they turned despair into fury. They struck harder than the enemy expected. They fought not only with weapons, but with belief in something greater than fear. The battle lasted hours. The stars became fire. Ships burned and fell. In the end, her ship was broken, but not destroyed. The enemy, shocked by her defiance, retreated into the black, leaving her scar but alive. Silence fell. The crew staggered across the deck, wounded, tired, but alive. They looked at their captain with eyes that no longer held only fear. They looked with respect. The alien pirate stood tall, smoke rising around her, blood on her armor, her voice steady. We survived because we stood together, she said, not because of fear, not because of cruelty, but because we chose to fight for each other. Her words echoed across the deck. Her crew bowed their heads. For the first time, they followed her not because they feared her, but because they believed. Later, in the quiet of the viewing deck, she stood with Daniel. The stars stretched endless before them. Her voice was softer than it had ever been. You have changed me, she said. Daniel looked at her, calm as always. No, he said, you chose to change yourself. I only reminded you that you could. Her chest ached with something new, something she had once thought weak. Now she understood it was stronger than any weapon. It was love. The ruthless alien pirate was gone. In her place stood a woman who had faced the darkness inside herself and chosen light. The galaxy would still whisper her name, but not in fear. Now would whisper in awe, in legend. They called her the pirate who found love with a human. And in the silence of the stars, she no longer felt alone.